The Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that carries not just monetary value, but also a deep sense of history, emotion, and national pride. Among the many issues of this iconic coin, the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar stands out. Not because it's rare or made of silver, but because it marks a new era. An era where the nation transitioned, not just in the materials used in its coinage, but in the way it remembered one of its most beloved leaders, President John F. Kennedy. Let's dive into the fascinating world of the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin with stories, secrets, and surprising facts that even many collectors overlook. To understand the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar, we need to go back in time. Back to 1963. On November 22nd of that year, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The world was shocked, the United States was devastated, and within hours, government officials began planning a national tribute. That tribute would take many forms: statues, schools, highways, but one tribute would become especially personal and lasting: a coin. Less than a month after Kennedy's assassination, Congress approved the creation of the Kennedy half-dollar. By early 1964, the coin was already in production, with millions of Americans lining up to get one. The coin was designed by Gilroy Roberts, obverse, and Frank Gasparo, reverse. Roberts had previously designed Kennedy's inaugural medal, and that same image was adapted for the coin. It showed a confident, forward-looking John F. Kennedy, symbolizing optimism and progress. Gasparo's reverse featured the presidential seal, a heraldic eagle with a shield, holding an olive branch and arrows, surrounded by stars. Now, while the original 1964 Kennedy half-dollar was made of 90% silver, that quickly changed. By 1965, silver prices were skyrocketing. The U.S. Mint reduced the silver content to 40%. But by 1971, even that became too costly. That year, the Kennedy half-dollar became a copper-nickel-clad coin, no silver at all. This is the first important fact about the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar. It was the first year the coin was struck without any silver content. That's why the 1971 issue is significant in numismatic history. It marked the end of silver in circulating half-dollars and the beginning of the modern clad coinage era. Its composition is a copper core with an outer layer of copper-nickel, commonly called cupronickel. This made the coin cheaper to produce and more durable in circulation, although its visual appeal changed slightly. Let's talk about the specifications. The 1971 Kennedy half-dollar weighs 11.34 grams, has a diameter of 30.6 millimeters, and a reeded edge. While most collectors focus on the silver coins, the 1971 issue is interesting precisely because of its non-silver composition. It reflects a practical shift in U.S. mint policy and economic reality. Now, how many were made? The mintage numbers are enormous. In 1971, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 155 million Kennedy half-dollars. The Denver Mint added another 197 million. That's more than 352 million coins combined. That makes the 1971 issue one of the most heavily produced in the entire series. But, and here's the twist, even though hundreds of millions were made, you rarely see them in circulation today.
Why?
The answer lies in hoarding, habits, and lack of utility. After 1964, people began hoarding half-dollars, especially those with any silver content. This became a habit. Even non-silver half-dollars like the 1971 were often set aside by the public, either out of respect for JFK or the mistaken belief that they might be valuable in the future. Furthermore, the half-dollar never regained widespread use in everyday transactions. It was simply too bulky for pockets, too big for vending machines, and lacked convenience compared to quarters and dollar bills. As a result, banks ended up with excess inventory, and the coins faded from regular use. Still, the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar continued to be minted for circulation for decades, even as demand dropped. Collectors, however, started noticing something. The 1971 coin, despite being common, has some interesting varieties and errors. One such variety is the 1971 D double die obverse, which is a highly desirable error where the date and lettering show slight doubling under magnification. These are not easy to find, but they do exist. Another variety is the no FG half-dollar. FG stands for Frank Gasparo, the designer of the reverse. His initials usually appear between the eagle's leg and the tail feathers. On some coins, especially those minted in Denver in 1971, these initials are completely missing, either due to over-polishing of the die or striking issues. A 1971 D. No. F. G. Kennedy half-dollar in high-grade condition can sell for hundreds of dollars. Let's shift gears and talk about value. What's a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar worth today? For circulated coins, meaning those that have been used and show wear, the value is usually just 50 cents. They are common, and since they contain no silver, they don't carry intrinsic metal value. However, if the coin is in uncirculated condition, especially with a grade of MS65 or higher, it could fetch between $5 and $30 or more, depending on quality.